Hello everyone, welcome again to live session of Manolaw classes. I am Dinesh Kumar and I am former assistant professor of law at Campus Law Center Law Faculty, Delhi University, and presently I am working as an academic head of Manolaw classes. So dear students, in today's session I will discuss with you one of the landmark judgment of Honorable Supreme Court, that is in the case of Minerva Mills versus Union of India, AIR 1980. Dear students, the date of CLAT examination now has been extended and the date is 19th June 2022. Now we come to the facts of this case. So as the name of this case is Minerva Mills versus Union of India, so in this case Minerva Mill is a petitioner, and what happened in this case, Minerva Mill was a textile mill. It was located near Bangalore city, and central government gave the order that the management of this mill should be taken by the government. So government appointed a committee under section 15 of the Industrial Development Act 1951. Basically, committee recommended that the administration of this mill is not being carried out in accordance to the provisions of the law. So when the administration of any mill or any factory is not being carried out in accordance to the law, or there are some other legal problems, then the government is authorized to take the administration of that particular mill or industry. So when the government authorized that the administration of this or the management of this mill should be taken by any other authority on the basis of recommendation of this committee, now by that time 39th constitutional amendment was also passed by the parliament, and this 39th amendment authorized the government to nationalize any mill, factory or any industry. And the Nationalization Act means which authorized the nationalization of a particular mill or industry was put in the 9th schedule of the constitution. Some of you may be aware about the 9th schedule and some of you may not be aware about the 9th schedule, but I am telling you what is the meaning of this and now why I am discussing this here. So basically 9th schedule relates to article 31B of Constitution of India, and it contains at present 284 subjects. 9th schedule provides that if any law is enacted by the parliament and that law is put by the parliament or the state legislature in the 9th schedule, then that law will be outside the purview of the judicial review. Means Honorable Supreme Court cannot challenge the cannot check the constitutional validity of that particular law which has been put by the parliament or by the state legislature in the 9th schedule. Considering this fact, there are 284 subjects or law which have been put by the parliament and the various state legislature in the 9th schedule. Now this amendment means the 39th amendment amended article 31C of the Constitution of India, and it provides that no law that give effect to the directive principles of state policy, this law cannot be struck down on the ground that it is against the freedom of speech and right to equality. So freedom of speech has been given under article 19 and right to equality has been given under article 14. So it means that, as all of you are aware, that directive principles of state policies are not enforceable in the court of law, means these are not justiciable, and these are the directions for the state that while the state will make the policy, it will make its policy in such a manner that it will try to give the effect all these directive principles of state policy. But fundamental rights are enforceable in the court of law, and if any fundamental right of any person is being violated by either by the state or by a private individual, then that person can directly approach to Honorable Supreme Court under Article 32 of Constitution of India and to the Honorable High Court under Article 226 of Constitution of India. But this amendment gives the power to the Parliament that if Parliament enact any law to give the effect to the directive principles of state policy, then such law will be valid and such law will not be deemed to be against the basic structure of the Constitution, because Honorable Supreme Court has recognized that the fundamental rights are the part of the basic structure of the Constitution, and Parliament can amend any part of the Constitution including the fundamental right, but it cannot amend the basic structure of the Constitution by virtue of Keshwanand Bharti versus State of Kerala. So when the management of this mill was taken, then and this law was enacted, means by way of 39th amendment. Secondly, by 42nd constitutional amendment, two provisions were added in Article 368, and these were clause 4 and clause 5 of the Article 368. These provisions takes the power of judicial review from the Honorable Supreme Court, and these provisions declare that the Parliament has absolute power to amend the Constitution, and the power of amendment of the Parliament of the Constitutions are not subject to any limitation or any restrictions. Rather, these are absolute in nature, and no court can take the judicial review of the power of the Parliament to amend the Constitution on any grounds. So petitioner challenged all these provisions, means the provisions of Article 39, provisions of 39th amendment and the provisions of Article 368 clause 4 and 5, on the grounds that these are against the basic structure of the Constitution, and this act, means the Nationalization Act of 1974, which takes away the, or which authorized the government to take away the management of this Minerva mill, is against the law. Secondly, these clause 4 or section 4 or section 55 of the 42nd constitutional amendment are against the law. Next was that the primacy of the directive principle of state policy over fundamental right, means it was the view of the petitioner that fundamental rights should be given preference over the directive principles of state policy and not vice versa. So now the issue before Honorable Supreme Court in this case was that whether insertion made under Article 31C and Article 368 through section 4 and 55 of the 42nd constitutional amendment hamper the basic structure of the Constitution, or these are against the basic structure of the Constitution, means these defy the judgment of Honorable Supreme Court in the case of Keshwanand Bharti versus State of Kerala. Second, whether directive principles of state policy has primacy over the fundamental right of the Constitution of India. Now, these were the main issues before the Honorable Supreme Court. Now we come to the contentions of both the parties, and first of all I am taking the contention of the petitioner in this case. So Minerva Mill is the petitioner in this case, and the advocate Mr. Nani Palkiwala was the advocate from the side of the petitioner, took the following contentions, and the contention number 1 was that the amendment powers of the Parliament are limited under Article 368, means Parliament's power to amend the Constitution are not absolute or not uncontrollable powers, rather these are limited powers, and the limit is the basic structure. It means that Parliament cannot amend any basic structure or any part which deals with the basic structure of the Constitution. Second, the court decision in Keshwanand Bharti case mentioned that Parliament has no authority to disturb the basic structure of the Constitution. So basically, if Parliament will be allowed to amend any provisions of the Constitution, and there will not be any limitation on the power of the Parliament under Article 368 as provided by the clause as provided by clause 4 and clause 5 of the article 368, which were inserted by the 42nd constitutional amendment. These are against the law. It was an obligation on the state to pass law on the directive principle of state policy, but it should not be done through the permissible means it can override the fundamental rights. So the next contention on the part of the Nani Palkhiwala or the petitioner was that although Parliament is authorized to enact the law to give the effect to the various directive principles of state policy, but it cannot override the fundamental rights. Means supremacy should always be given to fundamental right in comparison to the directive principles of state policy. Next, there would be a disbalance that would created between fundamental right and directive principle of state policy, and there is need to create a harmonious constructions. So Nani Palkhiwala or learned advocate in this case held that or contended that there should not be any conflict between the fundamental rights and the directive principles of state policy. Rather, while the Honorable Court will interpret these two provisions or these two concepts under the Constitution of India, it must adopt or it should adopt harmonious construction. So, dear students, first of all, we should know the meaning of harmonious construction here. So, harmonious construction means basically it is a rule of interpretation, and right of interpretation of the any Indian law lies with the Honorable Supreme Court. Harmonious construction means if there is a conflict between the two or more provisions of the law, and then it's the duty on the part of the Honorable Court or Honorable Supreme Court that Honorable Supreme Court will interpret these provisions in such a manner that there is no conflict between the two, because the intention of the Parliament cannot be seen as that the Parliament has enacted the law with the intention to create the conflict between two or more provisions of the law. Next, to give immunity to directive principles would wipe out the Article 19 and 14 of the Constitution. So it was further contended that if Parliament is allowed to enact the law to implement the directive principles of state policy, and by such amendment it is authorized to take away Article 19 and Article 14 of the Constitution of India, then it will be the violation of the doctrine of basic structure of the Constitution, because Article 14 provides for right to equality or equality before law, and Article 14 provides for various freedoms to the citizens of India. So these are the two main concepts, and if these are wiped out from the Constitution by virtue of being a law or being enacted law for the enforcement of fundamental right, then it would be deemed to be against the basic structure of the Constitution. Now we come to the contention of the respondent, means the Union of India. So Union of India was defended by the learned Attorney General at that point of time, and he contended that Article 31C of the Constitution of India reinforced the basic structure doctrine and it does not violate the basic structure of the Constitution. So basically it was contended by the learned advocate that Article 31C, which gives the power to the Parliament to enforce the law or to enact the law for the enforcement of the directive principles of state policy, is not against the basic structure of the Constitution. Rather, it supplement and it reinforce the basic structure of the Constitution. Second, any harm that is caused to fundamental right won't amount to the violation of basic structure. So it was contended that every fundamental right is not the part of the basic structure. So if any harm is caused or Article 14 and 19 are abuses, then it should not be considered that it is the violation of the basic structure of the Constitution. Third, to achieve the goal framed under the directive principles of state policy, power of Parliament should be supreme. There should be no restrictions on its amending power. So basically, if Parliament wants to give effect to the various directive principles of state policy, then in this regard Parliament should be given unlimited power and there should not be imposed any restrictions on the power of Parliament in this regard or regarding the amending of the provisions of the Constitution. So Honorable Supreme Court, after analyzing the contentions of both the parties, came to the following conclusion. So this decision was given by the 4 judges and this decision was given by the 5 judges bench, and 4 judges gave the majority opinion and 1 judges, that is Justice Bhagwati, gave the dissenting opinion or the minority opinion. So here I will discuss with you the judgment part of this landmark judgment. So in this case, after analyzing the contentions of both the parties, Honorable Supreme Court held that the power of Parliament to amend the Constitution must be limited and these must not be arbitrary or uncontrollable. Means no doubt Honorable Supreme Court in the case of Keshwanand Bharti versus State of Kerala has recognized that Parliament has the power to amend any provisions of the Constitution including the fundamental right, but this power of the Parliament cannot be considered to be unlimited power. Rather, this power is subject to reasonable restriction. Next, the theory of unlimited power to amend the Constitution would alienate democracy and create a totalitarian state. Means if unlimited power is given to the Parliament, then it would take away the concept of democracy from the country, and violation of the democracy will amount to the violation of the basic structure of the Constitution. Next, clause 5 of Article 368 is unconstitutional because it takes away the power of the court to take the judicial review of the amendment made by the Parliament. Next, it is the duty on the part of court that while court interpret the directive principles of state policy and this fundamental right, then court should adopt the doctrine of harmonious construction. Means court should not try to find out the conflict between these two provisions. Rather, court should consider that these provisions are supplementary to each other. Next, directive principles of state policy must not be given supremacy over the fundamental right. So directive principles of state policy can be considered as supplementary and complementary to each other, but these should not be given supremacy over the fundamental rights. So this decision was given by Honorable Supreme Court in this case. So that's all for today, my dear students. I will come again with the next landmark judgment. Till then, thank you very much. Goodbye.